Good morning, everyone. My name's Lorene. Welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. Today I'm going to talk to you about classics. I think it was in December that I saw a number of vlog posters talk about the classics that they either had read in their wrap-ups for the year of 2019 or classics that they wanted to read for the upcoming year. And I thought that sounded like a lot of fun. And, I'm kind of glad I did, but I think I just didn't choose the right classics for me. So they were classics that I felt were part of the, be a good classics reader list, as opposed to things that I really wanted to be interested in. So I have a book that I was sort of 50-50 on whether I would be a good human being if I read this versus whether I wanted to. And that is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Now, I have a very strong memory of being in the library when I was about 13 with my friend from Detroit, and we had definitely bypassed most of the offerings that were for teenagers. We were about, somewhere like 14 years old, and we were definitely finished with the children's end of the library. So we were sneaking up to the adult section, and I'm gonna say, oh, sorry. It has been that kind of a morning. I was on the phone with 3 different people and managed to choke myself silly at each different time just from swallowing. So apologies for that. Gesundheit, Lorene. Okay, Rebecca. She chose it because her mother had read it and she was not allowed to read it. And so, of course, we thought, well, let's see what we can do about that. And we picked up that one, and something that was on either side of Daphne du Maurier, so that, we were kind of sneaking it through. And then I'm pretty sure that somewhere along the way I read it or saw the movie. I don't remember. But as I was reading this, I thought, I know this book. But I don't remember reading the library book. I just remember my girlfriend reading the library book. And reading this now, I'm thinking, I don't know what her mom was so worried about. Anyhow, it's definitely gothic-y. There's certainly lots of suspense. Rebecca is this dead woman. If you don't know the plot, she is the previous wife of Max, and the main character in this book is not named, and that drove me a little bit crazy because I kept thinking, did I miss something? And kind of scanning back in the first 50 pages thinking, she must have a name. Why doesn't she have a name? Anyway, she's Mrs. What's her name? Mrs. Max. Can't remember what her last name was. It was used so infrequently. Anyhow, it's sort of a mystery in that Rebecca keeps coming to the forefront of the story, even though she'd been dead for a while. And there's a housekeeper who was devoted to her, and so she undermines the new Mrs. Max. And so there's that kind of background domestic tension, and eventually there is a boat discovered in the harbor outside of the mansion, and in it is the body, which is Rebecca, although about a year and a half ago, a different body had been identified as Rebecca's body. So, who's the dead person? And they figure it all out in a different kind of a way than the usual mystery solving. So it's not a mystery novel. It's just, it's like a lurking, creeping, suspense, I guess, in a way. And the part that I struggle with some of these books, especially if they're British, it just seems to be a theme for them, is that if only you opened your mouth and asked a question, so much in your life would be so much simpler. We'd have a lot less literature, I suppose, but I do find it really hard when the main plot device is the inability or fear to ask a question and hear the answer, because the main protagonist's device, for the most part, is to think for other people. She's thinking what her husband might be thinking, and she's thinking about what the housekeeper might be thinking, and a lot of it is just supposition. So it's like the suppositional present, and yeah, I don't love it as a plot device, but I will say that I was tense through the whole thing, and so my suspense level was high, and I do think that it was gothic-y, and my son's girlfriend is the one who recommended to me, and I will say thank you, because this book it must have been in its movie form, stuck with me for years. It's always been a plot that I have remembered, so definitely a strong book in terms of its plot. So another classic that I picked up, not as part of the Be a Good Human and Read the Classics list, is Howl's Moving Castle by Diane Wynne Jones. I just adore this book. I've read it. This is my third reading of it. It was read as part of my young adults older book club, and I think people were mixed on it. If a number of them aren't really magic fans, I love magic, and I love when there's a strong female character who's defying the standards of whatever her society is, and Sophie is definitely a strong, motivated character who finds herself with a curse upon her that has made her age from a 17-year-old to about a 90-year-old, and so she comes up with a plan that she's going to go to Howl, who is the local wizard, who has a moving castle. And Howl is sometimes in the castle, sometimes not. There's a lot of miscommunication. Sometimes he's that sort of omnipotent knower, and you, as the reader, are not entirely sure what he knows and what he thinks he knows and what he is manipulating. So Howl is definitely what would you call it? An elusive character. There's a fire demon that was once a falling star that was caught, and in order to survive landing on the earth, becomes a fire source and hence a demon. And so the fire demon and Howl have traded some sort of deal for longevity. And Sophie comes into this. There are a few other characters. There's a scarecrow that is just so creepy, super, super creepy. And Sophie's goal is to get rid of the curse that she's under, because she does not want to be a 17-year-old, 90-year-old for the rest of her life. So there's a wicked witch of the West, and there's a couple other curses that need to be dealt with, and there's a lot of transformation. This is a good moving plot book, that is for sure. The characters are very well drawn. Diane Wynne Jones wrote this originally, first published in 1986, I believe. I just think one of the reasons it's such a great book, there are 3 in this, but you can read it as a standalone, is that Diane Wynne Jones creates characters and settings that already have magic. As there's none of the sort of exploration that you have to go through in order to, why is this a magical community? Is this good? Is this bad? Do you have to achieve magic, or is magic just part of your everydayness? And so she just treats it very matter-of-factly, and I love her world building, and she's always got the craziest bad guys. So they're very, I think in another book she's got one where the bad guy is a potato, or very potato-like. She's very delightful. It's put out there as a middle-aged book, but the characters here are 18 and 25. So, and if you like magic, I think you'll just really enjoy this. And a lot of the things that Diane Wynne Jones brings to the magic table are definitely inspiring the next generation of writers. So you will see things that take place in her books that are developed in other books. So I think very many people have been influenced by her, either as readers or as writers. And now the last 2 books I'm going to talk about come from a press called Persephone Press, which is operating out of Britain, I believe. And this is a publishing house that searches for excellent books that are not in publication with other publishers that reflect women's development. Most of the authors are female. There are a few men writers who wrote very well in the voice of women, or were very good observers of the time. And they have a catalog of about, like I think about 125 books. And the catalog comes out twice a year. And it's my favorite day of the week. I just rush up to the bathtub with a magic marker and have a bubble bath magic marker fest and circle all the books I still want to get. And out of that, I came across Miss Bunkle's book by D.E. Stevenson. Now, the cover from this particular press is no screaming hell. It's gray, it's lovely, it's soft, but not very exciting. But what they do have are just beautiful end papers and bookmarks, and they are drawn from fabrics or wallpaper or art from the era of the book, the time frame of the book story, or of the author, depending. So, and Miss Bunkle is a spinster in the old-fashioned name of this meaning of spinster, and she really hasn't any skills. She needs to make some money, and genteel poverty is part of her world, and she's in a small British town that is very rural and enclosed and a little bit too inward turned, and she has got the gift of caricature and grasping the essence of a character. So Miss Bunkle in the story starts to write stories about the people in her village, and eventually the book is published, and she is now in terror of being discovered because the people recognize themselves. And it's just the book in the story is very, very well received. People are reading it all over the place, and so she's making all of a sudden a whole lot of money. And the main dilemma is, now that she's succeeded in making money, is she going to be discovered? And we get to see the characters before they're written about, after they're written about, as part of her writing process. It's just a real fun little romp. And she turns from sort of a moth to a butterfly. And I know that's not biologically possible, but that's kind of the way it goes, you know, kind of big and noticeable, but not very pretty, to all of a sudden just something very lovely. And the second book is her, it's, you know, obviously something good happens in this book that allows for the second book. And this one is Miss Bunkle Married. So it gives it away, a bit of a spoiler, but how she arrives at being married is kind of betwixt and between the two books. So we come across Miss Bunkle in her marriage, and the man that she has married is not a worldly man. He's a publisher and doesn't really know, he knows people, but he doesn't know women as a partner. I guess he hasn't been involved in many relationships, and she's still her naive, innocent self. About the middle of the book, I felt she was just a little bit too smug, a little bit too knowing, a little bit too kind of someone who you'd like to kick in the shins. And I'm not sure. I had to pause for a little while because I really wanted to kick her in the shins. And then I returned to the book, and we rollicked along to the ending. And I think they're both very solid, a good pairing. There's a third book, and I can't remember. I think it's Miss. No, it takes the same characters, but I just don't remember the title of the book, from Persephone Press. Anyways, these are two great classics. I love them, and I don't think they're on everybody's radar, because the point of Persephone Press is that it's picking up books that are not really published anymore. You might find them on a used bookshelf, but in the meantime, I should mention that Miss Bunkle's book was recommended by Eric over at his blog. I'll link that below in the doodly-doo. And he recommended it as well as part of what's a good classic to read. So, but I had already read it, so okay, good for me, I win. That's it for today. I think there are more classics coming down the tubes, but Tree Grows in Brooklyn is in my future, and there's another book I'm reading right now that is being considered for the Nebula and the Hugo Awards. Maybe it will become a classic. So I'll let you know how that goes, and I hope that all your reading dreams and adventures keep coming true. Bye-bye for now.